Good evening and welcome to the Village of Westmont Committee, the whole meeting for February 11th, 2010. I'd like to ask our village clerk to please take the roll call to begin.
Mayor Ron?
Here.
The clerk's here. Trustee Emery?
Here.
Trustee Fleming?
Here.
Trustee Forsley?
Here.
Trustee Klebanow?
Here.
Trustee Scott?
Here.
Trustee Seneca?
Here.
Manager Searle?
Here.
Attorney Zemanek?
Here.
Public Works Director May? Finance Director Van Bagen? Deputy Police Chief King? Fire Chief Trout? Police Chief Mulhern? Economic Development Director and Assistant Manager Kimball? Village Engineer Nicole? Village Planner Malik?
Thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item are the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held January 28th and board meeting held February 1st, 2010. Any corrections?
They were just passed out tonight, so if anybody finds any corrections, just call us at the clerk's office and we'll get them ready for Monday night.
Thank you.
Or Tuesday night, sorry.
Next item is open forum, and we have three requests before us this evening under open forum. And our policy is to try to keep our comments to about 3 minutes. So if you would adhere to that, we would be most appreciative. First of all, I'd like to call up Michael Graham from 306 North Grant Street.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Mike Graham, and I have a child at Miller School. Miller School's playground is in disrepair, as most of you may know, and it is not ADA compliant by any stretch of the imagination. It was installed in the early 80s when there was less sensitivity, if you will, or public acknowledgement of accessibility needs. The school board, the district, a year and a half ago, went through a process and brought in one piece of ADA compliant equipment as a start. Unfortunately, because of the pea gravel surfacing underneath, they had to actually install this ADA equipment away from the rest of the equipment. So although in the right direction, it was didn't bring in the right coherence that they needed. We do have a child who's in a wheelchair now, and there are certainly going to be more children who have needs as time goes on. And so with public request, the district allowed a committee to be formed to look at the playground and look at different options. The committee spent much time evaluating different scenarios and came to the conclusion that repair of the existing equipment was not feasible, or retrofit, if you will, and it needed full replacement. So we went through the process of evaluating different scenarios, and the Park District was very involved in helping us ensure that what we were putting together was appropriate. This past District 201 board meeting, the committee presented their findings. I should say that prior, the board had asked us to be fiscally responsible in these economic times, try to figure out a way to do this as cost effectively as we could. So the committee, which I'm a member of, value engineered certain components out of our recommendation. The board then took our base plan, if you will, and the items that were value engineered out, and put those value engineered items on as an alternate with the manufacturers or the installers part of the bid process. The cost for those value engineered pieces was $5,200. At the last board meeting, the board was able to approve completion or installation of the base system. So the school board is, the district I should say, is paying for a large majority of it, and then the PTO for Miller School is using half of its entire treasury to pay the rest of it as show of this is important to the school parents and students. But we still have a $5,200 hole to fill to add these additional components. I'm pleased to report that I just came from the Park District Commissioners meeting, and they were very generous in contributing half of that deficit or half of that hole to the cause. And we're asking the Village of Westmont if they would consider some level of contribution as well, most likely through, I would suspect, an intergovernmental agreement where it's an enhancement to the community as a whole. It's not just specific to the school. And the Park District was suggesting the way that they were going to address it was that, it's going to be citizens of the area would also have access to use that playground equipment too. So that everyone knows that we're accepting donations at all levels, of course, and there's going to be a dedication sign. Is this on tonight? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Turn it on.
So to give you an idea, this is what's going to be installed, and the pieces that are in color are what's was value engineered out. So we went to 4 swings instead of 6. There's more than 6 swings now. So it was to add those additional swings, and then a couple other components. Some are harder to see: a balcony deck, which is safety as well as convenience for the triple slide, a gyro twister, and a swing out. And so those 4 components total $5,200. But for those who are watching on TV, you can find this on Miller Schools down there. So here's our website down at the bottom. If anyone wants to take a look, it's Miller School PTO, if anyone wants to contribute. And this form is on there. And there's going to be a dedication sign. It will be blue and white, but to give you an idea, this is going to be permanently placed at the school, at the equipment, and on there are quite a few names already, which is wonderful. Businesses are certainly invited to participate, and that's pretty much it. We're hoping for the village's consideration in contemplating being a part of this very important enhancement to the community as a whole, and most specifically to one of the 2 elementary schools, Miller.
Okay. Questions or comments from board members?
Just a question, how much is the whole project going to cost?
Including the value engineered pieces, $88,000.
And the district's contribution, you said, was the majority of it?
It's 77, and 5 from the PTO, and the remaining is yet to be funded completely. Our district, again, is donated 26, or I shouldn't say donated, they contributed $2,600 just an hour ago. Just an hour ago, hot off the press.
Did I understand you were going to have some kind of sweat equity into it, where you were going to have volunteers?
That was part of the committee's original recommendation. The school board talked to their attorneys and their insurance company and determined, due to the liability concerns, it was more appropriate to have it professionally installed. A couple of the slides weigh about 250 pounds, and some of the elevations
What about the demolition?
The demolition as well is being taken care of professionally.
It was a noble idea, though. I'm sorry that part didn't get to be done. That it was because of legal reasons, insurance, that you couldn't get volunteers to donate time and.
It was a challenge. We had all the volunteers ready to go, and if we're able to receive additional contributions over the $5,200 in total, all of it is still going to be going to the playground itself, so it's not a cap. There's quite a bit left that still needs to be done. The baseball diamond, if you've been over there recently, is not in great shape. It needs to be dealt with, which we can certainly have community involvement with. The basketball nets and rims need to be dealt with. There's striping required for Foursquare and hopscotch. And there's quite a bit that needs to be done in that area. So it's not just $5,200, but it's $5,200 to get us to just the equipment.
So you're within, what, 2,600
That's right.
of that goal
That's right.
after the Park District's contribution tonight?
That's correct.
Okay. Any other comments from board members?
What is the sense of, I imagine there's a sense of urgency. I mean, we definitely would have to discuss this during our budget process to know if we could even, come
Very
forward.
reasonable question. Yeah, the urgency is this. They have already ordered the equipment, and we have until the next district board meeting, which is February 23rd, TikTok, to come up with the remaining balance through private contributions. And if we're able to do that, the district has agreed to add those components into the contract with the installer. So that's why I wasn't able to get on the agenda. This is all happening as fast as you can. And we do have 3 different fundraisers going on all at once. We're not hanging our hat on any. We're pennies for the playground. All the kids are putting quarters, nickels, dimes, big dollar bills, hopefully, into jars. And there's a competition at the school, which is great. And we're also selling cookies if anyone's hungry. All of that's available on the PTO's website and the school's website for that matter.
Excellent.
Have you gone to any of the other service organizations in the community?
They're on the list.
Okay.
It's making the rounds.
I just, as the board knows, we're under tremendous financial pressure, and we have been the last couple of years. We don't really have any discretionary funding for things like this. Tonight you heard a report from a citizens advisory group, and I think one of the elements in there had to do with the seniors program, which, as you know, we cut the funding back last year. We just got another request from them this week for the same level, and we're probably going to be looking at cutting that again. I'm just pointing that out as an example where we have some very difficult decisions we're going to have to make going into this next budget process. And while we all support the concept and we think it's a wonderful project, it's just the timing is not real good for that type of request.
There's no doubt that if it was an aesthetic upgrade, or wouldn't it be nice if, this would have been delayed with absolute certainty. It was due to the lack of ADA accessibility. It was pea gravel. Right now, there's pea gravel, so it's impossible for anyone in a wheelchair or other limitations to access the equipment.
Two other organizations you might consider presenting to, if you haven't already, are the Westmont Rotary Club, which meets at noon on Tuesday at the Guava restaurant, and the Lions Club. I'm not sure when their next meeting will
First
be.
and third Tuesday of the month.
First and third Tuesdays.
So it'd be a week from Tuesday, wouldn't it?
But those would be two other service organizations that do make donations to different projects, as well as scholarships and things like that. But they might be amenable to contributing. And obviously, with your appearance before us tonight, anyone sitting on this board that feels like they would like to make a sizable contribution to your project would be welcome to do that as well.
Absolutely.
Is that not correct? Or
That is
anyone,
correct.
or anyone sitting here in the audience this evening? And hopefully there are people that are watching you on television and hearing your comments that might also be willing to make contributions. But we do appreciate your coming in. We applaud your project. And we hope you get the remainder of the money that you need in a very rapid time limit.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Well, hopefully we'll have the Village of Westmont on the dedication sign.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very much. Next, I have a Juanita Mora from 9 West Oakley Drive. This sounds like it might be a combination project, not only for the village, but also for the Park District. Please, go ahead.
Actually, we just want permission to do a fundraiser. This is the first time that we're doing it. And I just started this, I'm new in this business. These kids go in Westmont Junior High. They start dancing in the streets. I took them out of the streets and I put them in an academy. The parents pay for their academy dancing classes. But they really want to go on Disney to perform in front of the stage, in front of everybody. And I talk already to the Disney people, and they're interested in the kids. We already sent a video of them, and they will love them to go over there and perform in front of everybody. But I just need like permission for the fundraiser for them.
You need the permission for them to put on the performance at Ty Warner
Yes.
Park. Well, that would be the Park District that would have to grant you permission and schedule that. When were you planning on?
May 22nd.
In May. I'm sure they would be more than willing to do something like that. Now, whether we would have to give any permission of any kind for a fundraiser, I don't think we would. It would
Just,
be up to the Park District.
you know, we could ask some more questions and find a little more information about it, but my initial reaction is that it would be it'd be their need to grant that permission. We'd be happy to provide contact information
Okay.
for the Park District.
To the extent it's considered solicitation of funds on public property, they may need a license from the village to solicit funds.
Yeah, because
Issued out of the clerk's office, right?
Yeah, the village clerk's office downstairs during
he
regular
spoke
business.
to me and told me to be in the meeting today, and
Okay.
this is the first time, so I was kind of confused, and I don't want to do nothing that is not right. So that's why.
I would suggest that you would go to the Park District to try to see Ron Gunter, the head of our Park District, and his staff. And then they could refer you back to the village to get a permit, but make sure that they can schedule it for you first, and then get the permit from the village.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
All right.
Great if they get to go.
Sounds good.
Hope it works out.
Thank you very much. Next is Bill Baum from 240 to 300 West Quincy.
Yes, good evening. I'm Bill Baum, and I own the properties at 240 and 300 West Quincy. And this concerns the new multifamily housing ordinance that was just installed. The ordinance is an ordinance, and not everything can be defined in the ordinance. And what we've noticed is that there's a lot undefined in this ordinance, especially when it comes to locally amended codes, which are the building codes. Those are the building standards. And that prompted the letter from Dave Scroll and myself to the other landlords concerning establishing a landlord association that might provide a forum that we can further discuss these locally amended codes, so that we might be able to input our concerns or our input concerning these locally amended codes, which nobody knows about. So we have established our landlord association, and I'd like to introduce it. It's Westmont Landlord Association. It's a business type nonprofit corporation, and it's been registered and recorded by our legal advisor to the board, Al Dominskis. We're hoping that this association will provide a means or a forum that we can hopefully establish a real good working relationship with the village concerning this new ordinance. So to give this association credibility, so the blind isn't leading the blind, we're going to be joining the Illinois Rental Property Owners Association, which is a proponent of good legislation by the state through a lobbyist in Springfield. This association is composed of many landlord associations across the state of Illinois. And these associations have a uniform code of ethics where all the members agree to and abide by to stay in good standing. And there are 7 line items, but essentially what they are is that we agree that we will manage and operate our properties in an ethical manner, maintain our properties to the minimum standards of the appropriate governmental authority, and not to discriminate. But there are 7 line items to this code of ethics. And in fact, I'd like to give you a copy of our membership form, which has this code of ethics already into it that we agree to and abide by. And this will assure the community, the village, and our tenants that there's integrity to our organization. The purpose or mission of our association is to advance the general welfare of the rental property industry by interchanging information, disseminating information, educating the membership, promoting the enactment and enforcement of fair and reasonable laws, and encouraging the practice of sound business ethics in the operation and management of our rental properties. I never myself thought about joining an association when I bought my properties, and I think many other people in the town never really entertained the thought of joining an association either, because there just haven't been any associations in the area. And in looking at this, when we got together to form the association, we discovered that there's more promise to this association than just working with the village on this new ordinance. There's a wealth of information that comes out of associations like this, and it all pertains to helping us better manage and operate and maintain our properties. In fact, that's part of the purpose of the association. So with that, we're going to be looking to do whatever we can to streamline the process for the inspections, to save the village money, because other places that have these associations in place have been it's been very effective and very, very successful. In fact, there's one association that's been in place, they're chartered since 1974. So they must be doing something right. And the city of Waukegan reduced their $25 per unit license fee to $10 per unit license fee. And this may be an attainable goal for us too, to be able to reduce the actual cost. I mean, I guess the $30 per unit fee is based on a break even, and maybe we can possibly bring this down to $10 just like the city of Waukegan. And one other goal would be actually to replace this ordinance with other ordinances that would address the specific needs. This ordinance is strictly about inspecting our properties for code violations, and the purpose of the association is so that we are code compliant. And by nature, we would be code compliant because we're looking to better ourselves in managing and operating our properties. So with that, we look forward to working with the village to do whatever we can to actually do something about the ordinance.
Thank you
very much.
Appreciate your coming in.
Can I ask a question, Mayor?
Yes.
How many members have you got so far, and how many do you think you will get?
I have no final count, although I would encourage all landlords of any rental property to join the association. It's just amazing the information that's disseminated through these associations. There's information about cash flow, the financing, tax credits that's available, tenant landlord, issues, and maintenance, just maintenance programs. So there's a multitude of information that's being passed through this that we just never knew about,
Could be a win-win for both then.
for everybody. And we're pretty excited about it because it's something that we didn't know about and something that benefits us immediately.
Would this be also for residential homes that are rented or for?
Oh, absolutely. All rental properties, whether they're commercial or housing.
No matter what size?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along, reports. Start out with the mayor. I have here in front of me an award which has been presented from the Government Finance Officers Association. It's not the first time that this award has been given to the Village of Westmont, our finance department. And I'm sure it won't be the last. And my memory serves me, they got the same award last year for outstanding budgetary presentation. So I would like to, after Ron Searle makes a few comments, ask our Finance Director, Lisa Van Boggett, and her assistant, Spencer Parker, to come forward, and we'd like to make this presentation this evening. Ron, your comments, please, sir.
Sure. The press release that they issue each year, and this is the 10th year in a row that we have received this award, has my name on it because I believe my name is put on the application, but the real architect of this document each year is our finance director and her staff. Our department's heads and departments work very hard to help put the information together that ultimately goes in that document, but the document that we have today really isn't the same document that we had when we first applied for the very first award. And it's a different design document that Lisa brought to us when she came here as our finance director, and I think a lot of credit deserves to go to her and her staff for the work on that document. I get a lot of positive comments from other governmental entities that, they go online and they look at our budget, and one of the common themes is how well the information is presented in an understandable fashion. And the information from one budget in one community to the next is oftentimes the same information, but we just seem to do a better job in terms of presenting it in a more understandable way, and that's due to Lisa's work and her staff, and particularly our budget analyst, Spencer Parker, does a tremendous amount of work on it. And so we'd like to have both Lisa and Spencer come up and have a little photo opportunity and presentation of the plaque.
Curtsy.
And Ron, because his name is on it. Yeah. Thank you.
Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award presented to the Village of Westmont for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2009. Done an excellent job, and particularly considering all the financial restraints that the village is under. We're still here, we're still providing the same services to our residents, and we're still moving forward. So we have a lot of thanks to give to you and the gentleman, Spencer, to your right, for all of your hard work and the hard work of your staff as well. So
Thank you.
congratulations, and keep up the good work.
Thanks for the support of the board. We just put this stuff together, so
Thank you.
it's your hard work.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. The only other thing I wanted to bring up at this time is that earlier this evening, the board listened to the recommendations from a committee that I formed a number of months ago with the board's approval, the Westmont Citizens Finance Planning Committee. And we asked this group of residents and business owners across the village to come in and look at all of the finances of the village and talk to all the different department heads, as well as gaining information from our finance department to see if there were some areas that they could look at, some areas perhaps that the staff was not familiar with. That were areas where we could save more money, where we could make additional cuts in our budget, and they have done that and made their initial presentation. Plus, they have also given us suggestions as to some of the things that we might do as a village to help continue to move their village forward, help get us in a better position so that when the economy does turn around, the village of Westmont is ready to move ahead with great speed. So I just wanted to thank all of those members, and I'll just briefly mention their name again, and they will be coming. This was the initial presentation tonight. They will be coming again for their final presentation, but the members on that committee are Steve Nero, Anthony Julian, Carrie K-Mac, Mary Kay Caparelli, Mike Porter, Justin Scheid, and Lynette Tuggle. So we appreciate all of the time and effort that they put into looking at all of the budgets and talking with all the department heads and coming up with some very viable solutions and suggestions that we may take or will take as a village as we move forward. Thank you. Moving right along, our village clerk, Jenny Simsky.
Well, first of all, I just want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day on Sunday and remind our residents and our board members that our meeting will be Tuesday, February 16th. We're closed Monday, February 15th for President's Day, so no one will be here. So don't come to the village Monday. That's all.
Thank you. Next, our village attorney, Jen Zemanek.
Got no reports tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Village manager, Ron Searle.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I passed out a draft resolution from the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference regarding expressing support for the protection of the red light camera enforcement program. As the board knows, reading a lot of the information that's been coming around lately, there's been a lot of discussions in Springfield about introducing legislation to either limit or in some ways restrict the ability to use the red light camera program. We believe that we've done it the right way. We've communicated that to our various elected officials here locally. I know through the conference's discussions that there's a lot of other communities that have done the same thing. As this board knows, you've established the program to review this program every 6 months. We're going to be coming up on that second review shortly. So this was circulated by the conference, and what I was going to ask is if we could add it to the agenda for Monday night and consider approving it and sending it on to our various legislators. I'm sorry, Tuesday night.
Comments? Anything?
Yes,
Anything else?
one other item. I just wanted to report, as the board knows from our budget discussions going back to this current fiscal year, the beginning of this current fiscal year, one of the directions we were given was to look at consolidating dispatch services. We've been working on that hard for a number of months. The individuals who have been working the hardest on it have been Chief Mulhern and Chief Trout and their respective staffs. But I wanted to report that this week, myself, Chief Trout, and Chief Mulhern attended the Oak Brook Village Board meeting on Tuesday evening. As the board will recall, back last fall, we had a Public Safety Committee meeting in which we invited trustees from Oak Brook to come and talk to us about consolidating our dispatch operations. They were very favorable at that time. This past Tuesday was their first opportunity as a full board to consider that. And Chief Mulhern, I thought, made an excellent and very compelling presentation as to why we think it makes a lot of sense as a transitional step to a larger regional dispatch center. There's a significant movement underway to try to establish a southern DuPage County regional dispatch center, something equivalent to the DUCOM facility, which is up in Glendale Heights. That's needed down here because it doesn't exist and because DUCOM needs a backup, and they don't really have a substantial backup at this point in time. So we think that's inevitable, and that's going to happen. In our proposal to Oak Brook, we were able to demonstrate, I think, that they would receive a substantial savings over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, or however long we do this arrangement. They did not make a decision, nor did we expect them to make a decision Tuesday night. They're going to have, I think, one more board meeting, and then there's a meeting after that, which I think is March 9th. They expect to make a decision and let us know so that we have some sense of direction as far as moving forward into our budget preparation. So I passed out a report from Chief Mulhern, and I know he inched closer to the podium, so I don't know if he wants to make any comments, but we're waiting to hear back from Oak Brook.
I will be brief. In my letter, and just so everyone knows, so members of the general public and the board members know, in order to be competitive in our pricing with Oak Brook, we approached the telecommunicators, the Fraternal Order Police Labor Union for the telecommunicators, asking them if they could also assist us in any way to make our pricing more competitive. And I'm very proud to say that the telecommunicators came back and did something that not easily done. They agreed to up to a 10% reduction in their salaries to help both villages should this center come to be. We presented that to Oak Brook, realizing that Oak Brook would also be affecting their employees should they come here, and Oak Brook also agreed to present that. So those are the figures that we took, and I would just like to publicly thank each of my members of that labor unit for their understanding and their cooperation and in trying to assist us to make this to be a reality.
And I think it's probably important to point out, too, that not only does this save money for both communities, but because we're both short in terms of our staffing in the dispatch facilities, that there's kind of a synergistic effect of combining those two areas, and we'll actually, I think both communities will get better service in the short run. And
as Manager Stroll mentioned, the South DuPage, it is now, they're looking at facilities in the neighboring communities. This desk today, Chief Heron from Woodridge is spearheading this along with some fire representatives from other agencies. And it looks like there's good possibility now. We had estimated 2 to 3 years. If everything goes as well as he expects it to go and as he plans and foresees it to go, it could be under 2 years. So as I likened it Tuesday night, coming in consolidation with Oak Brook and Westmont will be a bridge to the future, and that we will come here, consolidate, allow both communities to start realizing a fiscal savings, and then at the same time be ready to move for the future. We both agree this was a temporary move. Tuesday night I was asked by several trustees, is this is a temporary move, not a permanent move? And we assured them, yes, it was. So we all understand that this is a bridge towards the future.
Okay. Any questions? So the deadline is March 9th?
Yes, that's when they intend on voting.
That's when they will make their final decision, and if they decide not to go with us, then we will proceed to look.
We are already
elsewhere.
evaluating, and we have been since last year, other options.
Okay.
Yes.
Because you've been looking at this for quite a long period of time already, and we want to keep on moving forward. And this was an extension at Oak Brook's request for one more meeting, which we granted. But after that, then we're going to decide what we're going to do.
Approximately 2 years ago, that the board gave the police and fire department's direction is to begin consolidations, whatever form we so choose. We identified several options, and the best option we felt with, rather than going to a larger consolidated dispatch center, was to consolidate here in Westmont until a center it can be built that we would have more say-so administratively in, as well as maybe provide a better service to our residents. what we've tried to express not only to our board, to you, but also to Oak Brook, that by coming to us and combining with us, we'll be able to maintain the same personalized quality level of service that each of our residents from both communities currently receive. Because when you go to a larger center, you tend to lose that. And it's our hope that the South DuPage, we may lose some, but we won't lose all that we would, whereas if we went to a larger consolidated center. The fire department staff and also the finance department and my staff have been working together with our counterparts in Oak Brook to make this to be a reality. Oak Brook is looking at, I believe it was 8 options. Their fire chief and police chief publicly stated that their best option would be to remain as they are, status quo, but financially they cannot do that. So their best next option is to consolidate here in Westmont, looking towards the future.
Okay.
And I failed to acknowledge the finance department's work on this. It's been substantial, and it's been under some pretty tight deadlines on some occasions, so.
They've done wonders with the figures on it, so we thank them as well.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Mayor.
That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Trustees, I'd like to start with Trustee Emery.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Klebanow.
Just an announcement that Thursday, February 18th at 6:30, we will have our public information meeting. We had to postpone it because the agenda didn't get published in time. So we are going on with it on February 18th, 6:30. Immediately following, right after about 7 o'clock, hopefully, we will be having our census meeting. So come on, everybody, anybody interested and they're want to know more, come on out to the census meeting here. They'll both be held right here in the meeting room here.
Okay.
And happy Valentine's Day to everybody, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Scott.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Okay. Okay. Trustee Fleming.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
And thank you. Trustee Forsley.
I hope in the next 15 minutes, the Westmont girls basketball team holds up the regional championship trophy. They're playing at Lyle currently, playing Lyle at Lyle, so an advantage to Lyle from that sense on their own home court. But they're tonight's championship regional game, so wish them luck. That's all. Thank you.
Go Westmont.
Thank you. New business. Stormwater.
Hey.
Oh, trust. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey.
I checked you off already. I'm sorry.
Checked
You were right in the
off.
middle of the pack.
Penciled in, erased, checked. I just had a suggestion, and I've talked to a couple of people about it, and I just kind of wanted to get some input. I was thinking about perhaps once a quarter, we could have one of our departments come in, finance, clerk's office, street department, whatever, and just do a very high-level presentation of the workings of their department for the public's, interest. People pay the taxes, they pay the salaries. I think it would be, to our advantage to share with the public all of the other millions of things our staff does, just kind of on a high level. So it's just something I'd like to see us maybe do.
Kind of like a televised academy.
Yeah, just kind of introduce the department and,
What they do?
we know that Steve's department plows, but they do about 1 million other things too. So just
Would we
a thought. There you go.
maybe do that on like a Monday night?
Yeah, just, it doesn't have to be long, just a really high-level presentation. I think it would be nice. And it would also give our employees a chance to shine and be in front of the public. It'd be, their opportunity. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Stormwater detention waivers. Board to consider moratorium on stormwater detention waivers.
Mr. Mayor, may I interrupt you for a second? I was just informed by Mr. Kimball that a matter for, that needs to be put on the agenda for Tuesday night's voting is the matter regarding BMW's request for special use, that it's ready to be voted on Tuesday night.
Okay.
Thank you.
We add that to the agenda for Monday, or for Tuesday, excuse me. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Specifically, we had we had a fair amount of discussion about this at the last Public Works Committee meeting, and I'll reintroduce the item. Specifically, we're referring to Section 34-34 of the Village Code, where one of the provisions within that code allows for criteria where staff can administer a detention waiver in lieu of providing the actual improvement or the stormwater improvement. In the event that a detention waiver is provided, then there is a system where a fee in lieu of needs to be substituted as a substitution for the waiver. Anytime that there was been a waiver to not provide detention at all, that always had to come to the village board. But this provision in the code, a lot of things all kind of happened in the same era. When near the same time when the previous village engineer retired, we went in the DuPage County level, we went both from being a non-waiver community to a partial waiver community. Prior to this change, 100% of all the stormwater permitting was referred to the county. They had to get the permit and bring it back, and now we administer some of those parts. So all of that occurring at the same time, and the reorganization of what was the engineering department, our planning functions have all changed. So most of the review starts in the economic development department with the planning and the planning engineer, but there's still the engineering component and the stormwater management issues. So with all that said, that made we all gave a very hard look to everything that was in the codes and the different areas of the codes, the land development code, the building code, all different places where these requirements came in here, and found a lot of things that we should have been doing differently, or some things we weren't doing at all, and likewise. Backing up to this provision, so in that same area, when you actually read what the waiver is supposed to be providing, I can tell you already the intent is to allow for the capacity. If you didn't have some form of waiver process, you wouldn't be able to do any development like in a central business district where you've got 0 front yard setbacks, 0 side yard setbacks. You would pretty much tell everybody that you could never build again, in the downtown, because there's no way you can provide stormwater management. So these provisions are in there so that you meet a certain level of criteria, and then you would be eligible for a waiver, and then that kept that decision at an administrative level, and they didn't all come before the village board. At the Public Works Committee meeting, I showed you a list of the habit of the types of waivers that were issued up through that era before everything started changing, and the very, very few that have qualified since that time. But there's an endless number of requests that come through. It is instead of being the exception to providing stormwater management, it has become everybody just I want to pay for that out, to not provide the detention. And it's a lot of time going through everybody, telling them no, time after time again. You're already aware, I've already identified that I've been denying a majority of these because they have the ability to provide detention, and we've been proceeding that way. Very lastly, we've had taken no action on anything since the village-wide study has been initiated. And one recommendation you saw in the presentation was the moratorium on issuing these waivers, especially when they're upstream of known drainage problems. And then he showed you the map of where the drainage problems are, and there's pretty much no parcel anywhere that doesn't have a drainage issue somewhere downstream from it. So we're still in a position where we're administratively not administering any of them. And given, like I said, what the provision was based on, the request for the moratorium is just to eliminate that possibility and then return it to the system where the very, very few exceptions that really do qualify to take advantage of that, those are the only ones you'll see, and you'll see them at the village board level as opposed to it being done in a plan review. So that is the purpose of the request. All of those issues combined together all point to the same request or the same issue.
Okay. Questions, comments from board members?
How long until the final report is expected to be in?
Well, it'll be several months. I don't expect the information in the final report to indicate anything differently. I mean, it was something that he already had enough information on that he identified it at the presentation. The direction to the consultant was to, the next step was to move towards the stormwater management improvements that could be done both, quickly and the ones that can be done inexpensively, and hopefully some of those are both categories. And they're compiling that list for us now so that we can do it for our budget planning in this next coming fiscal year, which we're trying to do now. But in the next, several months, I expect to have a final document. It'll be more of at a staff level from here on out. And after we have the report, we have to get together and go through a prioritization process too.
As far as the timing of the moratorium, how long it will last, the way the ordinance is drafted right now, based on the staff write-up, is that it will remain in place until such time as the final report is basically accepted and adopted by the village. And I know there's no, for example, development going on downtown right now, but if a request should come in, are we looking at, 4 months, 10 months,
Yeah, well,
2 years?
I'll tell you just from my point of view, I don't see where, this provision even needs to be in the code anymore, except for, unless we can fine tune it to limit it to certain types of districts or really look at the fee in lieu of dollar amount so that it is not the attractive alternative. The moratorium could be, the moratorium was the suggestion so that it is not a permanent change and we can decide when to correct that, if at all. So it could be indefinite, in my opinion, but if you want to look at it again after the results of the study, I'm happy with that too. But I'd prefer not to put a time period on it. I'd prefer to come back and ask for the change when we are ready to do that.
So is he asking to have this moratorium put in place immediately?
The moratorium as far as it being administered by staff, so that the village board would have to see every instance of any opportunity for its use.
Okay.
As a committee, we back their suggestion very highly on this. We did go into great detail, and I just think it's something going forward we need to really look at and get our hands and that around it. And I have to concur with Steve as far as the report that we're going to get on the water study is not really per se going to affect this, because all they're doing is suggesting changes or repairs that we could possibly do to what we have right now and listing what priorities and your cost factors would be. So I think it would be a case that there shouldn't be an ending date to it.
Okay. Any other comments?
I did have one last component to it. In the event and assuming that it will be considered for a vote on Tuesday, the last piece of business related to it that would have to be thought about are the applicants that are in process right now. We have, these are five permit applications, if you will, where they have already submitted plans and have, we would be switching systems in the middle of what they were doing. But they are, you can see here, these permits were turned in and are substantially old. You have a 2005 application where they were already at the village board level approved for a waiver, but have not paid it yet to date because they haven't proceeded with the development. There's another one here that was approved 2 years ago, and same thing, unpaid. Here's one that was approved and paid. So in that particular case, if we said it applies to all and everything instantly, we would have to evaluate whether they were due that back. And lastly, there's one in application right now asking for a full waiver. They've already, with or without the moratorium, they've already been told no, they need to. There's capacity to at least put some improvements in, and they are upstream from a very well-known drainage issue. So I have no intention of allowing that anyway.
Okay.
So we could, say everything effective immediately and then only have one, or go back to a certain date.
With those projects, have they stalled because of financing issues where they're just
Essentially,
dead in the water right now?
Right. Two of the cases, I can only speculate, they are lot splits, and I think the purpose of wanting to retain their waivers so that they can sell their property off without actually doing any construction. It's a marketability issue for them at this point. But that's speculative on my part.
Normally, there's some sense of having some vested rights once you've gotten approvals from, at least from staff or board level, paid your money in. If the law changes after that, you expect to be able to build according to the approvals. There's cases where you can retroactively apply the law when there's some health safety justification for it. And in this case, if you feel like there is sufficient health and safety concerns because of the dramatic flooding problems that have increased over recent years, then I think you'd be justified in this case taking away those previous approvals that have not been acted on and are now.
None have been acted on, only one has been paid, but it's been paid, but the construction has not proceeded.
They're many years old in some cases. So the
There's no
choice is
statute
yours.
of time?
I'm sorry?
There's no statute of time when we approved it, then the time run out, isn't there?
No, I mean, not to my knowledge. Once they get the approvals, I don't think we require them to go ahead and they haven't come in for permits yet.
No, and for comparison purposes, if someone pulled the permit or for a subdivision, they posted a subdivision bond, if no activity happened in 2 years, we consider all of that terminated and they need to start over from the beginning. So using 2 years is kind of a typical time frame that we use for other related business.
Well, that would cover the two that was approved but didn't pay.
It would allow
2008.
this one to proceed if they were to pay soon,
Oh, that's right, 2008.
and would allow the one that paid to keep it, and those two would expire.
Yeah, but 2005 and 2006 would be out of age.
Okay, any other comments?
I just need direction for the ordinance because I think that's important to put into the ordinance how you're going to treat those applications.
Well, if the 2 years passes and they have to come back in, if they, like the top one where they had paid, can we just refund it and do that? But I think, I mean, it's not like we've got 30 of them sitting out there. The ones that have been approved, I think that when everything else expires, those approvals ought to expire. But the one that where the project has started, where they prepaid, the fee is paid and the project, you know, if it started, then probably gonna have to live with it.
Project hasn't started.
None of those have started,
None
right?
of them.
None of them,
None of them.
have
Oh,
started.
okay.
or as far as broken ground. Right.
So the one with the fee paid on 5/30/2007, 2 years have elapsed. The subdivision approvals
It's
therefore.
a single building on a single lot, in fact. I don't mind, I'm just trying not to, you know, identify addresses, but I mean, if you want information on any one particular, I can describe it. It's in the central business district, so it's.
Yes, Your Honor, the village planner informs me that the other approvals related or germane to that development where the fee has already been paid expired in 2008. So I think there were some parking variances, Shannon, along with some other side yard setback requirements that got variances, and as the village board is aware, I think those variances expire within a year if they are not acted upon.
Okay.
Our code requires final plat within 1 year after preliminary plat approval. So I guess my suggestion is if you're planning on, probably a good one, not extending, not allowing these waivers that were previously granted as a result of this moratorium, then the most recent one is a 2008 one, which they haven't pulled any permits. They don't have final approval on that one either. So technically that's lapsed. You might as well treat all of these properties the same.
Right, and then treat them as expired? Yeah, and then that's, I mean, for what we're undertaking with the stormwater study and hopefully remediation type thing, we would be remiss in allowing any of them.
I would agree.
Any other comments, directions, everything? All your questions are answered, Mr. Attorney? Okay. Thank you. Next item, 22 East Chicago Avenue, DJ Sports Bar. Board to consider the following. A, request for permission to proceed with project without following village and county engineering and stormwater plan submittal requirements. B, request to receive detention waiver without providing evidence of qualification. C, request for exemption from payment of cash in lieu of fee for detention. D, request to waive DuPage County water quality best management practices. E, request for waiver from Village of Westmont standard specifications for parking stall dimensions. F, request to waive the parking lot concrete barrier curb requirement. G, request to waive parking lot screening and island requirements. H, a zoning code variance request to permit a parking lot expansion constructed from crushed aggregate. I, zoning code variance request to permit parking spaces without drive aisle access. J, a zoning code variance request to permit parking in the side yard adjoining the street. And K, site and landscaping plan approval.
Just one thing, it's 222. I'm sure you have it right on the other notes, but 222.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So, good evening, everybody. I think everyone here knows me, but for the record, my name is Tracy Valerio, and I own DJ Sports Bar at 222 East Chicago Avenue. And I've been a resident and business owner in Westmont for 17 years, and I'm very involved with the community. Most of you know me from the Chamber of Commerce or the Rotary Club. The reason I'm here today is to ask permission to relocate some parking spaces I lost due to Black Hawk Drive being under construction. Basically, I've lost 24 spaces on Black Hawk Drive and would like to extend gravel into my back lot. Both myself and the landowner to the east of me lost 50% of our parking spaces. And I know you guys have a lot of really tough decisions every week, and you like to do studies. I've noticed that you get all the information before you make any decisions. And I was just curious if possibly was a study ever done to see the impact on what would happen to 5 businesses that lost 50% of their parking, because that's basically what happened to me and then the 4 across the street. So, and actually, I should just say that's a rhetorical question because I want to finish what I have to say, if that's okay with everybody. Let's see. At one point during the construction, before they had put the curbs on the east side of Black Hawk, I discussed it with the business owner across the street from Fox Valley, and he said that if the village agreed that we would put soft curbs instead of the hard curb, that he would allow parking there with my customers to park there at night and on weekends when his businesses were closed. So we did request that, but that for some reason didn't go through. I'm sure it needed to be brought up in the planning stages and not at the end of the construction. But I wouldn't be here tonight if those 12 spots were open to me. I wouldn't be here tonight asking for this other thing. And obviously coming in after Steve, I obviously am aware that there's more problems than just me in town. And after, I did get a yes from planning and zoning, but after that meeting, I met again with Fred Kimball's office, and as you can see, what Mayor Ron just read, I don't know if you want to include a left arm as L or your firstborn, but it really does look like I'm asking for a lot here. But I'm really just trying to recoup my parking spaces. And it does sound like I'm asking for a lot, but from my viewpoint of this, I'm just trying to get some parking spaces back. And it's really only going to give me 5 parking spaces. But because I lost the parking, and because it has been gravel, it's, Habitat for Humanity, that was gravel for 6 months to a year when I allowed them to use the property. When Chicago Avenue was under construction, it was 1.5 years, and it was gravel. And then now, of course, it was the mound of grindings when they did Black Hawk Drive. So it has been, in the last 8 or 9 years, probably at least 3 years of it, it has been completely covered, and there haven't been any repercussions to any surrounding companies or houses, to my knowledge. And I know that typically the runoff does show that it goes north of me, but the guys who did Glenbrook Construction, who did Blackhawk, they're going to be the ones who do the grading, I guess you would call it. It's all a bunch of numbers. I'm sure you guys have the packets. I don't know how to read it, but what they tell me is it's all going to flow to the east into the storm sewer, so there shouldn't be any runoff. And if you do approve this, I'll sign a waiver or whatever that if anything goes wrong, I'll just put it back to grass. But I honestly feel that because it's been that way for so many years, that it's really not going to cause any problems. That's the way I look at it. And again, I'm not the expert, but if I thought it was going to cause anyone to flood, I also wouldn't be up here because, that's just not the type of person I am. So that being said, I'm sure you guys all have a lot of questions.
Questions from board members?
Tracy, I've got to ask, why are you asking for waivers on issues that everybody else would have to go through if they were going to put in a parking lot?
Because I'm not asphalting it. I'm not paving it. It's just extending gravel. And like I said, I didn't have to ask for any waivers for Habitat or Chicago or for Blackhawk. I mean, they all just were able to do it. So that's why I didn't think it would be a problem for me to continue that.
What about using the parking lot to the west?
Well, it gets into a sticky area. I don't know that gentleman very well. His name's Lou Prano. I don't really know him well. I have a relationship with Tony from across the street, Tony and Pat. There'd be insurance involved. Somebody fell on his property that was my customer. I may have to pay him to do it. And to be honest, I'm barely making my mortgage payment lately because of the economy. So I couldn't handle another monthly fee. And I have the space, so I thought if I had the space, I could use it. So that's why.
Is the gravel parking lot a variance in itself?
Yes, it is a variance in and of itself. The zoning code doesn't permit anything other than hard surface.
Except on a temporary, I guess, because we did vote for Holy Trinity to have gravel.
2 months.
In a temporary
And
situation.
it's still there for how long?
Well, I think we did it on a 1-year comeback or something like
Yeah.
that. It was 6 months or come back in a year.
So we're already checking into that. I've already requested that. The other thing is, if we were to approve this, it would be going against everything that we've been working at in the last year. And everyone, thinks the world of you, Tracy, and that, but there comes a time when, unfortunately, we have to look at things in a light of what other people would be required to do. And granted, when the Habitat for Humanity went in, things were a little bit different then, and then the grading for Blackhawk and that. But the problem that you have here is that we have such a water problem in that particular district or that area. Anything that wouldn't go along with the regular patterns that we're asking to be done would pose a problem, and there would be people that would be very upset with us in doing that. Whether or not they're upset with us or not, that's part of what you do when you're elected. But when you put gravel down, and over a period of time, as it gets crushed down, it becomes 85% non-permeable. So you're putting down something that basically the water's not going to go through. If there was some kind of item, which I know some companies are working at now, permeable surfaces that are out there that would be approved and looked at, it would just, for me, it would be very difficult to do this, I'll be honest.
Well, do you have any other suggestions? Like I said, 50% of parking for me and for other businesses. I wish I didn't have to ask for this, but, 24 parking spaces leaves me with 20. And those guys are left with like 4 for 4 businesses. They have to parallel park now. So
There is some,
I guess I have to ask the question then, when all this was going together, I mean, were we aware of the fact of what property was going to be lost, and was this all handled in the way that it should have been handled?
well, in the parking that, and Fred, correct me if I'm wrong, that DJs enjoyed was in the public right-of-way.
Okay.
So when you say that, you absolutely use that parking. The village wasn't at the time using the right-of-way, but the fact is it wasn't part of her property when she lost those spaces. There was a loss of on-street spaces, and there are, because I remember we worked on a staff level with the business owner across the street to try and mitigate some of his concerns. We did a larger curb cut to accommodate his trucks.
Carriage walk.
But we also discussed that there is street parking there that runs up the street quite a ways. I don't know how, it's not the most convenient as having an on-site parking lot, but I guess that's a partial answer.
So basically, the particular area that we're talking about that was taken then was public right away to do with whatever we needed to do with.
And I understand that, but you wouldn't take away the east side of downtown. That's also your parking. No one owns that. You wouldn't just take away one side of parking and say, well, it's really ours. We're going to.
I have a question, because is anything different than when you went before planning and zoning?
Well, the difference is I wasn't aware that everything is done just like I was going to pave it. Like all the waivers, all the, they want handicap stalls and lines. You obviously can't line gravel, but they're just copying everything just as if I was.
I guess what I'm saying is, she was before planning and zoning 5 months ago, and we don't have any of the planning and zoning information in our packet. I honestly don't remember, I saw the meeting, but I don't remember the dialogue, I don't remember, and you said they approved it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause
I'd like to see that.
We've got it as an agenda item and what was presented, but then nothing beyond.
But usually we have the minute, we usually have.
I mentioned it to Shannon, she's going to mail.
So if we could maybe
Trustee
have that
Klempman,
just to
I'll mention
refresh
it
our memory.
Before the meeting, you do have the staff report from the September 9th meeting, but the
Yeah, I
minutes were
saw that.
omitted on accident. Those will be emailed to you before Monday evening's meeting.
Shannon?
I apologize for that.
Do you have an idea, either in foot dimensions or square feet, how much space that's currently grass is what she's seeking to have covered up?
I do. I have it actually. And it is just above 5,000 square feet, which I learned that 5,000 is the end point, so I wouldn't do that. I would make it under 5,000. I'd have grass, put grass. I'm doing a berm anyway, so the berm would need to be on grass. The engineer didn't figure out what portion of that would be grass. He just figured out this is what you have. So it would be definitely under 5,000 square feet.
5,000 square feet would have to include whatever the berm also, because any disturbed earth, that's calculated also, not only gravel or whatever the parking lot is.
It would be under 5,000 square feet.
That's the county requirement.
Right, the project is still required to follow our local ordinances in terms of providing
And I
this
can
work.
tell you, I can guess, at least for myself, that if a resident came in and wanted to build a 5,000 square foot, one-level house without doing any stormwater detention, I don't think it would happen in this lifetime.
But it's gravel. It's not, I know that, do you consider gravel to be the same as a
It is
house?
semi-permeable, and it loses that semi-permeableness very quickly.
Every spring I have potholes all over, so, that it crumbles and it goes down into the ground. I know that's the correct term, that it's what you're saying, but I'm here to tell you, the water goes down, and it's not hard. I walk on it in heels, and I'm all over the place. There's rocks. It's rocks. It's not flat.
Well, my other question is, how do you in this day and age justify not being accessible for ADA purposes?
The money, honestly. I wish I would have known about it 17 years ago when I bought the property. It would have been a lot. I would have figured that into the price of everything, and I can't afford it. And judging by what they're telling me, if I were to pave it, I couldn't even pave the whole parking lot because the whole parking lot would be like 20,000 square feet. So I could, you know, what's,
And how often are you filled to capacity?
well, lately, not very often, but, you know, I'd say before the recession, they overflowed into the street probably four times a week, probably.
Tracy, you might want to tag on to this, but I think that I recall having a discussion at some point with you about possibly discussing with Mr. Pirano the use of his spaces in the shopping center to the west, and you said that your customers did from time to time utilize those spaces.
Right, but I can't afford to enter into an agreement with him.
A permanent agreement?
Yeah. Not with this economy. If things change, maybe I will, but
Has he complained about your customers parking over there?
no, we have an okay relationship. In fact, we're looking to do some business down the road, which I'll be up here again to get some approvals. But it's just, you know, I know that I wouldn't want people on my property. You know, he's liable for anyone who slips and falls on that property.
Well, he's liable now too then.
He is. But I don't tell people they can park there either.
Tracy, one other thing I wish we could clarify here for the board's consideration. You allege 24 spaces missing because of the widening of Blackhawk.
Yes.
Could you show us on here where those 24 spaces are?
Okay. They were on this side of the street. Can you see from here? And it went all the
But-
way.
That's not you, I mean, just on your property.
Oh, I'm saying 12 on each side.
So you're alleging 12 here?
No, there was like 8 around here, and then we parked, there was parking here. This is an old picture, but after they, I think it was after they did Chicago, when they left, there was a pipe put in here, some sort of a pipe, so it was all gravelled over here. Not me, I didn't do it. They did it when they put in whatever it
So
is.
you're alleging not 24, but 12 spaces that you lost?
12 on my side, yes.
Okay.
And again, not my property, but the village property.
And just a couple of points of clarification, the numerous waivers and variances that were on your cover sheet this evening, the waivers are items that aren't under the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Those are things that are from the village code, and it's only at the board's discretion that those items can be heard. So there were 3 variances heard and approved at the Planning and Zoning Commission level.
Which 3?
They were, I can summarize those for you. The parking lot has to be constructed of hard surface. The code states that all open off-street parking areas and driveways shall be improved with concrete or asphalt as approved by the Public Works Director. There was an access variance, and that was because the code states that each required off-street parking space shall open directly upon an aisle or driveway of a width and design in accordance with Westmont standards of design. All off-street parking facilities shall be provided with appropriate means of vehicular access to a street or alley. And then third, there was a variance for off-street parking off-street parking in a side yard. So on the Blackhawk Drive side, there was a question as to some of the proposed parking would be in the 10-foot setback according to the sketch site plans that staff reviewed. In addition to that, at the staff level, our hands are kind of tied because the way that our code is written, we can really only let Ms. Valerio continue with status quo, the gravel as is, probably even the removal of some of it to a pre-existing condition if we were to review some aerials. So she's before you tonight, and we sympathize with her plight, but staff does not support any of these waiver or variance requests because of the precedent that it may set. In addition to the stormwater concerns, there are a number of planning and just site layout concerns that we have, and we do not want to set a precedent that this construction material should be allowed village-wide.
Shannon, can you put that picture back up
Sure,
and
the
point
aerial.
out what area it is that she wants to gravel over? I mean, I understand the widening of Blackhawk, which spaces would be lost.
Well, this is the aerial, and I might want to flip forward to the sketch site plan. So the existing gravel limit is about here. And then, just give me a second to find it. It's roughly like the last third The north third of the lot.
What's that surface now? Because on the picture, what is it, dirt?
It's partially gravel, dirt, and grass.
It's not grass anymore. It hasn't been grass since they put down that pile of grindings for Blackhawk. So right now, it's pretty much the leftover grindings.
It also might be useful, Kim Nicholas prepared a chart that kind of delineates the detention that would be required under various circumstances. I'd like to ask her to respond to that.
Okay, if you calculated the detention for the site with the 0.1 CFS per acre release rate, which is what is required by a county ordinance and our ordinance, it would require 0.158 acre feet of detention, which would be approximately 36 feet by 76 feet by 4 feet deep if you did it full detention. Or if they did a cash in lieu of fee for that, it would be $19,750. I also prepared if you were doing post-development release rate equal to pre-development release rate, and then she would require 0.023 acre feet, which would be 14 feet by 50 feet by 1.5 feet deep, and the cash in lieu of fee would be $16,875. And so you can see that that's about 13% of what it would be for the full detention. And it is being, surface water runoff is being directed to Blackhawk Drive now with the plans that she has. This is calculated with the dimensions that she gave me. And it's being directed there, but it's being directed at a very low longitudinal slope. It should be like 1 to 2% slope is what we usually want in asphalt. It's in gravel and it's like 0.4%. A lot of it would just sit in the parking lot before it would drain over to the
Well, that's so they wouldn't overflow the storm sewers. Because if all my water went into there, then everyone else's water, where would that go?
But
So I may have in the middle of my parking lot, puddles of water when it rains, and that would be my inconvenience, but that's so I don't inconvenience the rest of the neighborhood.
Well,
at least that's how they explained it to me.
For different, they have different options where you can have permeable pavers, or you can have pervious concrete, and they have usually more flat parking lots for that. And what you said, they can do that, but that also has water quality or best management practice things built into that, and the gravel wouldn't have that. That would be another thing we would want to have. With the gravel the way it is right now, you could, and especially with the asphalt grindings, you could have a lot of sediment go into the storm sewer system, and we wouldn't want that either. One of the things I was going to say also, even if you do directed this to the street, the surface water runoff, when it goes from the street, it goes up Blackhawk, and then it goes over to Trobby, which is where the storm sewer system that Wilmette and Warwick drain into right now. So, which we know have big drainage issues, so we don't really want that to happen either.
Okay, now I asked about permeable pavers, and you guys said that those are not allowed.
We haven't accepted detention credits for that yet, and I don't know if we will.
Let me add a little bit.
Okay.
Just not only to back up just briefly, these calculations are based on rough estimate of our current code, just estimating the permeability. A lot of the stuff that we're discussing, that we don't know and how they're going to turn out is because there are no engineering plans. There's no design. There's just the request to cover it in stone and the intent to drain it in certain directions, but we don't have a topography. We don't have anything to review. Permeable pavers, whereas we don't use them right now, if there was permeable pavers, if anything, would by professional design would come up with a factor that combined with the permeability of the soils underneath the pavers, you would come to a conclusion of how much water is not leaving the boundaries of the parcel, and then that would go to how much detention you need, but you still have to do a detention calculation. So it's just part of the detention design if you were going to utilize it. So there may be opportunities to do something different, but in any case, in any combination of cases, there needs to be professional design done to even evaluate whether or not it's, reasonable or allowable.
Right. They did do a little bit of, with their submittal, they did give some elevations, and that's how I was able to do what I did with this, but they didn't do a complete, like Steve said, they didn't do complete engineering.
We don't, it's our best information on what we're working with.
Your Honor, I guess just one other comment from the staff perspective here. We, as Shannon said, certainly sympathize with the plight of the business owner in this case. However, we've got some ordinances that we feel obligated that we have to enforce. And we respectfully but firmly disagree with the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission in this case. I think from both a public works and an economic development perspective, believe that this would set an extremely dangerous precedent at a time that we're wrestling with severe stormwater flooding issues throughout the village of Westmont. And I think something that Steve May referenced is that yes, the petitioner is trying to direct this to flow to Blackhawk, which then flows to the north and competes with the existing small storm sewer space for the line that then goes east into Clarendon Hills. So remember all the problems that we've got over on Warwick. That competes for this same storm sewer space that the petitioner now wants to direct her surface water into instead of detaining it on her property. We believe that's a formula for trouble.
I think they got that.
Isn't there any other way?
Tracy, before all this was done, and you had grass back there, were any of the customers parking on that?
Nope.
How come?
Probably because it gets muddy, I guess. I don't know. And there really wasn't a need between my parking and the street parking. There really wasn't, you know. And if you did park, you probably would get blocked in, I think, as well.
Are they parking on Blackhawk Drive now when you have an overflow?
You know, I've only had one. I had my anniversary party a couple Fridays ago, and that was probably the one time we were at capacity plus. And yes, they were parked everywhere. I mean, in all the residential areas. And the people who did park across the street got blocked in because you could only really parallel park. And then it's really tough. And it's not just tough for me, it's tough for those businesses because there's really nowhere to park for them.
What are the businesses? What you
It's,
said 5 different businesses are
Well,
affected.
me included, and it's a landscaper,
Okay.
excavating, Fox Valley Excavating. There's a guy who has his office, he does remodeling, and he'll have customers come and look at samples of things and whatever, and then Pert and Pretty, and then there's a resident there as well. And then I included me because I do use their parking, and he's okay with it.
Okay.
As long as it's not in the day and it doesn't disrupt his, the businesses there. So, and honestly, if we just had that soft curb, that would have saved us. I don't know from an engineering viewpoint how bad that affects all the stormwater, but, you know, to me, it's going from a curb to a low curb, same amount of concrete. You know, I know it's supposed to keep some water in there or something, but I took pictures all up and down Chicago Avenue. There's so many businesses that have the soft curb, and they back out right onto Chicago Avenue. And some of them, you know, don't even have a lot of room. They directly back out into Chicago. So that would have really, really helped out all of our businesses. So I'm just, you know, I'm surprised. I don't want to be asking for this either. I would love to have a paved parking lot. It would look much nicer, and it would bring more curb appeal to my business. And it's something that I do want to do in the future, but I'm talking over $200,000 because I would have to do underwater detention or underground detention. Otherwise, I couldn't even do the full parking lot. So, you know.
I have a question. It's kind of out there, so bear with me. But, you know, I mean, this is a long-term business. We certainly would like to come to some kind of compromise that would work for everybody if there is any way we can. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be going in that direction, given all of the challenges in that area. Would it be possible, would it be feasible, could it work? What if at the owner's expense, that curb were replaced to a soft curb, and we leased our property for $1 a year or something? I know we've done that with another business.
Well, no, that is his property, though.
No, on your side. I'm talking about on your side.
Oh, well, it's in front of a stop sign. So I get why there's no parking on my side of the street, because it is.
No, I mean,
This was discussed for the other side of the property, the soft curb, and there were a couple reasons mitigating against it. One, there's a sidewalk there, so it creates a pedestrian hazard, and 2, you have the stop sign there, so you could have cars pulling out while cars are pulling around off Chicago Avenue onto Blackhawk and creating a traffic hazard.
But-
The same thing would hold true on her side
On the
of
west
the
side?
property. I'm not so sure about the sidewalk because we didn't discuss that, but from traffic patterns, I would think it would be a concern.
But they did put the sidewalk in during the construction. There never was one there before. So technically, they could have, done that without, nobody is used to walking on that sidewalk. And I think it's an apron. It's really not a sidewalk because it's,
All of those issues
Longer.
together all come to the reasons why, the design turned out the way it was. On the east side of the street, in order to not eradicate all that parking, the sidewalk was put as a carriage walk adjacent to curb so that it could be used, and driveway access was given up here so that they could maneuver in the lot. It doesn't afford them the exact same number of spaces as if you pulled right off the street, and that's true, but they do have access to all this property. It functions better as angle parking right now. There is a public sidewalk installed. We moved it as far away from the business as possible. In this case, on this side of the street with the building at zero setback, actually it's not even zero setback, it's ever so slightly encroaching into the right way, I think less than a half a foot. But in order to get the public sidewalk past the building and the curb, there's physically no room left adjacent to the building, so that's not even a question because it won't fit anymore with the width of the road and the public sidewalk installed. Public sidewalk having to be moved over a little bit so that it, because of the building. So from the driveway into what would be the back parking area, there is no parking allowed from there to the corner. Call that all intersection safety related reasons.
and I want to add, though, there is no diagonal parking because people park here and they come in here and they park like this.
Right.
So if you were to diagonal park, you would have to back out all the way out because if you backed up and went this way, you'd get stuck because there's a car there. So the only way you would be able to diagonal park is if then you reversed all the way down the line and maneuvered your way out the driveway.
And the reason that isn't established is because this is stone as well, and it's all on how they want to set up their parking lot management. It is possible to circulate through here if laid out correctly.
And taking more parking spaces away, basically, because you wouldn't be able to park there anymore.
Not head in.
So what is the exact problem with you can't do a soft curb? Because I'm missing the point, because if it was soft, people would be able to pull right up like they used to do. So you're saying there's no room, but we always did it before.
I'm trying to answer it very generally. When we had the individual meeting with that property owner, I mean, there was a couple hours of discussion as to why that's like that and why we put the curb where we did and why we're managing it to afford them as much of their useful space that they had before. But
And the road is wider.
it is wider.
That's the piece I was missing. I wasn't thinking about that part.
And the on-street parking doesn't develop until after their driveway, which is back here somewhere, and now there's on-street parking from there north.
And the resulting parking spaces here are entirely on private property.
And it's a parking in the front yard setback issue as well, and it's a complex topic.
Is the parking on the west side of Blackhawk?
No.
Actually, there's no parking on the west side of Blackhawk the entire length of the road.
So it's all on the east?
Right.
But it's allowed the whole length on the east side?
Yes.
Except right in front.
Except near the intersection.
Close to the corner?
Right.
Okay.
And then there's, away from the corners, there's further blocks down, there's island areas, so majority of it's in place.
So they could park up there if they were willing to walk back?
Well, exactly.
And they will, my customers will, but, pert and pretty, you just got your dog groomed. You're going to walk your dog in the snow all the way to the corner?
But unfortunately, Pert and Pretty isn't here tonight.
Well, and it's really not their property, it's Tony, so he was willing to come, and I didn't think it would be necessary. But he's already discussed it with you guys, and, I'm just trying to give you some ideas. I wish, it's really impacting my business.
On one hand, I'm not for this at all, but on the other hand, in Tracy's defense, the village did allow that property to be used for 2 to 3 years and we didn't seem to worry about it then. So in her defense, we were kind of guilty too.
And I might add, I didn't get any financial compensation from any company. I just did it. I thought it would help things move along quicker. And, you know, Chicago Avenue that really hurt because it was closed for so long, at least one way. And I thought if there's anything I could do to speed that up, it will help me in the long run. So, you know, I don't want people to think that everyone thinks that I get paid for whenever I do that. And I probably should. And maybe if I did, I'd be able to afford a new parking lot. But it's not used. And I just feel that if you can help someone out, you should help them out if you can. And that's what I did, so.
Would you consider an engineering study for the permeable pavers?
I would. I mean, that was one of my ideas, and I brought up that they're doing an experiment, not botanical gardens, Argonne, not Argonne.
The Morton Arboretum.
Thank you, Morton Arboretum. And it's just in a test phase, but I would be willing to look into that. I mean, that's something that is probably much more affordable to me than doing underground detention.
But you know, there's no guarantee that even goes through, though, even if you do the study.
And so what does that mean? I would pay for it and then see what happens?
Well,
yeah.
Like Steve said, without a study, how can they make a good decision? I mean,
Right.
The decision is no because there's nothing.
But also Steve's comment was, even though you do have the permeable surface, your calculations are still going to come back, and more than likely, you're going to have detention.
No matter what.
No matter what. So there's still going to be detention involved.
Could she do detention on the back half of her property and make the lot smaller so she could have on-site?
But then I think that's where I'm at now. Because that back third is what I'm looking to extend to. You know what I'm saying?
I think where you have, I think I came out with 36 feet by 76 feet by 4 feet. I think where you have the berm right now, if you put above ground detention there, it's almost the same size as your berm, and you could direct your water into that, so you wouldn't necessarily have to put underground detention. Also, with the pervious concrete, let's see, and the permeable pavers, Steve was just asking me if the county accepted that. The county hasn't. You would have to be doing is you're asking to have detention for the void space between the stones underneath the permeable pavers or the pervious concrete. The county yet has not come to a decision on whether they accept that or not. However, this project does not fall under county requirements for detention. This project falls under village requirements for detention. So if we had decided that we wanted to try to accept that, that would be up to us, whether we would count void spaces with that or not. You would have to also see how permeable the ground is underneath the detention area, whether you would need to have an under drain there or not. And you would have to do, so we would have to decide whether we would want to allow something like that. And if we felt that it wasn't working, then would we require her to replace it, dig it up, put other detention in later?
And then what happens? Do I go back to being grandfathered in with the gravel, or do I have to then pave?
Right, but you could put above ground detention in where you have the berm proposed right now.
And in most of these cases where we're seeing those kind of pilot projects, we also have the issues of, again, the striping, the ADA compliance, the drive aisle widths, the curbing. So those are expenses that we're still going to need to be bringing into the conversation.
Well, you could put those things on top of them.
Wow.
Right.
There's no easy solution.
I know, and I know you guys are in a tough spot, and I know I know your answer. There's no way you're going to be able to say yes, but I'm just hoping maybe you have an alternative solution for me besides paying somebody else to use their parking lot because, in this economy, I can't afford it. And I also can't afford to pave, which is the problem as well. If I could afford to pave, I wouldn't be here. It went no farther than them, and it'd be done, and you guys would be rolling into a nice parking space the next time you came in. But, the
guy that's next to you, maybe if you made a deal with him saying that, well, somebody's plowing your lot, you'd pay to plow part of his lot.
Yeah, I know how much he pays to plow that lot, and
I'm not saying the whole thing.
Yeah.
But the part, maybe your customers to a mutual.
Yeah. Again, that's just, I'm telling you, times are tight right now. the housing market. I used to have all construction guys coming in the day with all, you guys know how many times do people come up to build anymore? I mean, it used to be, I think you guys had one department just for new builds, and those guys were all coming in for lunch every day. 10 different crews going in and out, and now there's nobody. And, that's not your problem, but I'm just saying, times are tight. I have no extra cash flow going right now. And that's why I'm trying to do this for my customers, because I want to make it easy for them to come in. I don't want to, to discourage the few people who are still coming in. And, I don't know if there's that whole soft curb thing, if there's any other discussion that could possibly go on with that. Maybe if you guys drove past and saw what I was talking about, you might think it's feasible. I don't know. That would solve a lot of my problems. So, I don't know.
Anyone have anything further to contribute?
Okay. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Next item, Public Works Maintenance Service Agreement, traffic signal and street lighting maintenance. Board to consider a Public Works Maintenance Services Agreement with Mead Electric for traffic signal and street light maintenance.
Mayor, there's two reasons this agreement's before you. One is the fact that it is agreement. This is one of those, like the next item, in the category of all public works improvements needing to be executed into this agreement that has all of the provisions consolidated into one document. And so that by itself would have been here before you already. The dollar amount also dictates this is an annual contract for streetlight maintenance, and this is the same maintenance contractor that has been maintaining our traffic signals and street lighting, although they've gone by different names through different eras, essentially since 1986. I renegotiated this agreement with them. We had, this is what the area of traffic signal maintenance and streetlight maintenance is a topic that we've been meeting with discussing with the Village of Downers Grove, and in this case, Woodridge and Lyle, about doing joint maintenance contracts and for more pieces of equipment and trying to get economies of scale. So with all of these communities being in different terms in their contract, we agreed that if that was going to be a reality, that our goal is to have all of our contracts in line so that they all terminate in April 30th of 2011. So this agreement is to get us past that point, and it is the exact same prices that we've been paying since 1986. And we will investigate the renegotiation in a bigger contract a year from now when that comes up.
Okay. Wow. Questions or comments? Aren't some of our streetlights maintained by ComEd, or are they all maintained by the village?
Yes, it's a good question. This is for street light maintenance of the streetlights that we own, which is essentially any metal or concrete pole, these ornamental poles in the downtown area as well. Some of the maintenance we do ourselves. The streetlight portion of the maintenance is all reactive, so it's all time and materials, and that's laid out in the schedule in there, and that does need to be renegotiated in June because their union contracts annually get renewed in that month. The traffic signal maintenance is preventative maintenance. It is routine maintenance they show up to. It's emergency call out, and there's a lot of parts to that they do every month, and in some cases every week on a routine basis throughout the year. So street lighting is all reactive. Traffic signal has got proactive and reactive work in it. And the wood poles, and mostly the old part of town, a good majority of everything from Ogden Avenue to 55th Street is Commonwealth Edison equipment, and we do not pay to maintain any of that.
Steve, would the bulk of the services be for the traffic lights, do you think, or for the?
The traffic signals is the bulk of what's in here. The dollar amounts are listed as, price per intersection for all the maintenance services that are listed in the agreement. The street lighting is kind of hard to qualify because it's only when we need them. Things we are looking into doing to save costs are what's involved with doing bulb replacement and maybe ballast replacement, and that's the extent of the electrical work we'll do. And the big portion of the amount of money we pay is to have the underground wire located, and we are aggressively looking into doing the Julie locates in-house instead of having this organization do it, since we're already doing water main. It's different equipment, a little bit different training, but we think we can handle that.
Okay, the reason I was asking is I was sort of wondering if there would be a chance to maybe partner in this contract some way with the park district. They have a lot of lights around a lot of parks. I don't know, I was just kind of grasping, thinking if there would be a way to share this cost with somebody.
That's what he's talking about doing. We're trying to get all the communities, their contracts in at the same time to where.
I'm thinking more on a local level.
Well, I think we'll get a bigger economy of scale if we're going with these other communities, though, in terms of price benefit, don't you think?
Yes, but that doesn't mean we can't
ask them
include as part of our portion, other maintenance.
Do you feel that that this is going to work, that they're going to be receptive and that there'll be considerable savings?
One? Yeah, well, at least at the discussion level we're having now, we're serious about that. All of our contracts look different, so we have to spend the next year making one master contract that we're all comfortable with.
Do any of the other communities have agreements with their park districts and their schools and other
I'm not familiar
other things
at
that
all.
would have?
This
I'm
is
just
a new,
thinking the more that we can get involved in it, maybe the lower the rate would be.
That's the goal and the idea, and this is one of the many opportunities that we've been working with the Village of Downers Grove, looking for places where we can combine resources or combine contracts or combine purchasing to achieve these same goals.
But as it stands right now, the rates in this contract are no different than what they were in 1986, right?
For the traffic signal. The
signals
street
are
light
staying.
maintenance, any time and materials is adjusted. Just
Right.
the labor part is, it's time and materials, so it's
Right.
whatever it is, plus I think like 15%.
The basic part of the contract is the same as what it was.
Yes. And we have more equipment,
Traffic.
we've got cameras, we've got LED technology, we have different detectors, we have battery backup. There's more features in these traffic signals than they were in 1986, and we're not paying any more.
John, I'd just like to mention that, it's one of those standard contracts with everything, ADA, prevailing wage, drug-free workplace, all that. I still would like to see the FOIA paragraph put in our contracts, because with the new FOIA laws, our clerk's office would be overwhelmed if they got a request for these documents, that our contractors should be required by our contract to maintain the documents and help us gather them under FOIA.
I think that
I have done that with another community, with consultants of the village, where work that could be done in-house is farmed out to a consultant. For example, code enforcement. Those would be public records. But in this case, I guess my question is, if the contractor is keeping records of prevailing wage act compliance or other compliance, they're a private company. Yes, we require them to comply with the prevailing wage act, but is it?
It's the documents regarding the contract, like, I emailed you a sample paragraph that we're using in our communities that I work with. And what it does is it helps the clerk by, if somebody ever said, okay, for Mead Electric, we want to know how many times you've worked on streetlights in the last 20 years. Mead Electric, under contract, has to pull those documents for us. Our clerk will work on it, our initial FOIA officer, but it's overwhelming to do so within 5 days. Our contractors, it's a little easier.
in agreeing with what you're saying, and I think it is covered in here, but it's covered in here kind of in parts in the different sections, and I only found one quickly under prevailing wage rate. If you look at 7.2, it explains the responsibility of the contractor to keep the records and be able to produce them.
Well, they have to do that by state law,
Right.
but there's a separate paragraph now as a result of the new FOIA Act that went into effect that really, it helps FOIA officers all over the state.
Okay.
So I know Ron's seen it and John's seen it, so that's just something that I'm, being the backup FOIA officer, would like to see.
Sounds like a lot of FOIA to me. Any other comments? Just out of curiosity, what is the difference in service efficiency between Commonwealth Edison and Meade Electric? If that streetlight in front of my house burns out and it's Commonwealth Edison, would it take them longer to repair that, replace it, than it would Meade Electric?
Based on performance, it's yes in all cases. Now, by longer, depending on the era, it's how much longer. I mean, at its worst, there have been situations where we've waited a half a year for something to get addressed.
I better put it on list. Ours is out too.
Ours are out the next day. I mean, if it's a village-owned pole and you call the contractor, if they're not out there the next day, they're calling to apologize about their workload, and it might be 2 or 3 days, to get to it. But
Do we get apologies from ComEd?
no. I get no feedback from.
Thank you, sir. You just answered my question.
Is your light out in front of your house, Mayor?
It was, but it only took 6 months to get it replaced.
So being mayor didn't do anything for you then, huh?
Maybe that's why it took so long.
It was one of those that went out intermittently. And when staff saw, oh, it's on, there's nothing wrong with it. When they left an hour later, it was out for an hour. So
Well, we rely very heavily on either resident participation in contacting us to identify the problem, or the police department to, notice it in evening patrols. Otherwise, we're mostly not out at night unless it's snowing.
Thank you, Steve. Next item, Public Works Maintenance Service Agreement, Landscape Maintenance. Board to consider a Public Works Maintenance Services Agreement with True Green Commercial Lawn Care for various public grounds that require routine landscape maintenance.
Similarly, the only purpose for this being here, it's an annual contract. I don't even think adds up to $400, but because it's an agreement, it is before you. By landscape maintenance, it is just the weed and feed type application, and these are in the areas in the downtown, the Burlington parking lot, the depot and center areas. There's a couple islands that we maintain in the commuter parking down Burlington Avenue, and the parkway in front of the street division building are all included together, and it's essentially liquid fertilizer and weed control.
Questions? Thank you again. Next item, reduction of Class 4 and Class 15 liquor licenses. Board to consider reducing the number of available Class 4 and Class 15 liquor licenses by one in each class through the forfeiture of liquor licenses by El Pulpo Restaurant, 323 West 63rd, and Divine Wine at 29 North Cass.
Evening, Mayor. As you know, Divine Wines has ceased to do business on North Cass Avenue. They notified us back in the summer that they would be leaving, closing shop, and they have done so. We waited 30 days as required by our ordinances. They have not done business by 30 days. The mayor has declared their license to be lapsed since they have not renewed it. And so based on that, we're asking the board to reduce the class number of 15 liquor licenses or the wine boutique licenses from 1 to 0. Also, El Pulpo Restaurant on 63rd Street. They failed to renew their 2010 liquor license within 10 days. At that time, our ordinance requires that they would have to pay not only their 2010 liquor license fees, but they would also have to pay a $1,500 reapplication fee. Towards the end of the month of January, I went down and spoke to the owners, asking them if they planned to renew. They said they were having financial constraints, as a lot of businesses are in the area. that they will probably be renewing. However, if they have to pay the reapplication fee, they would not want their liquor license because they do not sell that much alcohol with their restaurant sales. I told them they would be required, not only, they had to be required to pay both fees. They indicated that they would not be renewing their license. They likewise, if they are still open in business for the restaurant, however, they have ceased in the 30 days time period from the sale of liquor. So based on that, and their license are not, and their indication not going to be renewing their license, the mayor has declared their license is forfeited. And that would require the reduction of the Class 4 liquor license by 1.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Next item, personnel policy revisions. Board to consider the following policy revisions to the personnel policy ordinance as they pertain to change in employment status from full-time to part-time. A, Section 62-91, 5, pay policy, Section 62 to 97 vacation policy, Section 62 to 98 vacation award schedule, and D, Section 62 to 131 sick leave.
The background on this is we brought this to the Administration Finance Committee a few weeks back. We had an employee this year who voluntarily went from full-time to part-time status, and we realized as a result of that that some of our sections in our personnel policy didn't really address how to handle the various benefits. So we discussed this at the extensively at the committee level, and the language that you see in your packet is reflective of what we discussed. The other part of that discussion, I think, also included what would happen in the case of a layoff situation and how we would handle that. So that language has been also addressed.
Questions? Hearing no questions. Finance ordinance number 20.
Waive the reading?
Request to waive the reading. Purchase orders. Questions, purchase orders. Hearing no questions, we have no requests before us for an executive session. With that being said, unless there's something else to come before the board, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Could I mention one thing before we adjourn?
No.
So moved.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
I just wanted to mention that both Steve Pinzak and Carrie Kamak took the FOIA test online and passed and are certified as FOIA officers. Now, Ellen, have you done that?
I thought about
June 1st, I believe, is the
Yes,
deadline.
it is.
Have a motion and a second.
I believe Trustee Emery made a motion to make.
Yes. Second.
Yes, we do.
Roll call on the adjournment, please.
Trustee Emery.
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow. Yes. Trustee Fleming. Trustee Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Borzley.
Yes.
Trustee Senni.
Yes.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.